birth anniversary 3 days ago. Darwish is prominently known as the Palestinian national poet, and today I'm reading a poem he wrote before 16 years now. He of course passed away in 2008. The poem is called Silence for Gaza. Gaza is far from its relatives and close to its enemies, because whenever Gaza explodes, it becomes an island and it never stops exploding. It scratched the enemy's face, broke his dreams, and stopped his satisfaction with time. Because in Gaza, time is something different. Because in Gaza, time is not a neutral element. It does not compel people to cool contemplation, but rather to expulsion and a collision with reality. Time there does not take children from childhood to old age, but rather makes them men in their first confrontation with the enemy. Time in Gaza is not relaxation, but storming the burning noon, because in Gaza, values are different. The only value for the occupied is the extent of his resistance to occupation. That is the only competition there. Gaza has been addicted to knowing this cruel, noble value. It did not learn it from books, hasty school seminars, loud propaganda megaphones, or songs. It learned it through experience alone, and through work that is not done for advertisement and image. Gaza has no throat. Its pores are the ones that speak in sweat, blood, and fires. Hence, the enemy hates it to death and fears it to criminality and tries to sink it into the sea, the desert, or the blood. And hence, its relatives and friends love it with a coyness that amounts to jealousy and fear at times. Because Gaza is the brutal lesson and the shining example for enemies and friends alike. Gaza is not the most beautiful city. Its shore is not bluer than the shores of Arab cities. Its oranges are not the most beautiful in the Mediterranean basin. Gaza is not the richest city. It is not the most elegant or eloquent or the biggest, but it equals the history of an entire homeland, because it is more ugly, impoverished, miserable, and vicious in the eyes of enemies. Because it is the most capable among us of disturbing the enemy's mood and his comfort. Because it is his nightmare. Because it is mind oranges, children without a childhood, old men without old age, and women without desires. Because of all this, it is the most beautiful, the purest and richest among us, and the one most worthy of love. We do injustice to Gaza when we look for its poems. So let us not disfigure Gaza's beauty. What is most beautiful in it is that it is devoid of poetry at a time when we try to triumph over the enemy with poems. So we believed ourselves and we were overjoyed to see the enemy letting us sing. We let him triumph. Then when we dried our lips of poems, we saw the enemy had finished building cities, forts, and streets. We do injustice to Gaza when we turn it into a myth, because we will hate it when we discover that it is no more than a small, poor city that resists. A small, poor city that resists. A small, poor city that resists. We do injustice to Gaza if we glorify it. Because being enchanted by it will take us to the edge of waiting. And Gaza does not come to us. Gaza does not liberate us. Gaza has no horses, airplanes, magic wands, or offices in capital cities. Gaza liberates itself. Gaza liberates itself from our attributes. Gaza liberates itself from our attributes and liberates our language from its Gazas at the same time. When we meet it in a dream perhaps, it won't recognize us because Gaza was born out of fire while we were born out of waiting and crying over abandoned homes. It is true that Gaza has its special circumstances and its own revolutionary traditions, but its secret is not a mystery. Its resistance is popular and firmly joined together and knows what it wants. It wants to expel the enemy out of its clothes. The relationship of resistance to the people is that of skin to bones and not a teacher to students. Resistance in Gaza did not turn into a profession or an institution. Gaza does not care that much if we know its name, picture, or eloquence. It did not believe that it was material for media. It did not prepare for cameras, and it did not put smiling face on its face. Neither does it want that, nor we. Hence, Gaza is bad business for merchants, and hence, it is an incomparable moral treasure for Arabs. What is beautiful about Gaza is that our voices do not reach it. Nothing distracts it. Nothing takes its fist away from the enemy's face. Not in the forms of the Palestinian state we will establish, whether on the eastern side of the moon or the western side of Mars when it is explored. Gaza is devoted to rejection. Gaza is devoted to rejection. Hunger and rejection. Thirst and rejection. Displacement and rejection. Death and rejection. Enemies might triumph over Gaza. The storming sea might triumph over an island. They might chop down all its trees. They might break its bones. They might implant tanks on the insides of its children and women. They might throw it into the sand, sea, or blood. But it will not repeat lies and say yes to invaders. It will continue to explode. It is neither death nor suicide. It is Gaza's way of declaring that it deserves to live. It will continue to explode. It is neither death nor suicide. It is Gaza's way of declaring that it deserves to live. Thank you.